It's time for FLA Law, brought to you by the personal injury attorneys of Perinick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes. This hour will be informative, along with taking your questions and comments. Now, here are your hosts for today's show.
Live with FLA Law, live on the radio. Thank you for joining us once again for your weekly live call-in legal talk show. Hopefully you're a faithful listener. If you are, welcome back to the show. We're so happy to have you. And if you are new, welcome. This is, like I said, your live legal call-in talk show where we talk all things Florida law. We are the personal injury attorneys of Perinick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes who host this show. But we also bring in wonderful guests in the legal community, attorneys and experts in their various areas of law to come on every week to talk to you and give you some information and talk to you about the law in various legal areas spanning from criminal law, real estate, family law, and so many other things. And so this is a great time for you to let your family, friends know, hey, FLA Law is live on the radio. It's time to tune in. I'm going to give you all the ways that you can continue to listen and watch tonight, and also so that you can share with family members and friends so that everybody that you would think could benefit from tonight's show will be able to tune in. So first and foremost, as you know, we are live in the WTAN studios. So absolutely, you can continue to listen for the next hour on 106.1 FM and also AM 1340. But of course, we are also streaming online as well. If you are on Facebook, then you can certainly find our live stream at Perinick, Caulfield, Averill, Noyes Injury Lawyers. If you type in Perinick, P-E-R-E-N-I-C-H, you'll find our red circle around the firm logo that lets you know that we are live right now. Tap that video and you'll see myself and my special guest who I have in the studio with me tonight. If you click on that, then you know you're in the right place. You're at the live feed, and you can actually comment questions and comments in that comment chat box at the bottom, and I will read those out live over the air as well so that you have an opportunity to get your comments in. If you just want to chime in on our conversation for tonight, you can do that there in the comment section on Facebook. But we're also on YouTube as well. So if you don't have a Facebook account, but you want to watch the show, you want to see us live in the studio, you can still do that on YouTube under the same name for our firm, Perinick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes Injury Lawyers. Look up the red live logo on YouTube and you'll see myself and my special guests in the studio. Again, you can leave your comments and questions on YouTube, and our producer Ed will read those out to us and let us know if someone's commenting or chatting with us over on YouTube. And then also the good news is if you can't stay in the live feed but you want to come back and listen to it later, don't worry about it. We've got you covered because we are also on most podcast platforms. Just about anywhere that you listen or watch podcasts, you can find us there as well. Under FLA Law on the radio. So if you search FLA Law on the radio on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, most Apple phones already have that app on your phone. Just type in FLA Law on the radio and you will find all of our episodes on there in audio format. So tonight's show will be uploaded later as well. So if you don't get to watch the whole show and you have to step away, but you want to come back and listen to it later, no worries. You can do that on our podcast as well. And I hope you will do that because this is going to be an awesome show, because I do have a great returning guest with us tonight, attorney Mack Justin, otherwise known as the Mustang Lawyer. He is here with us. He's also a local real estate attorney and broker, and he just has his hand on the pulse of what's going on in Florida real estate right now. And I think he's an awesome resource for our community, and we are so happy to have him back on the show. If you've been faithful listeners and maybe you caught his show a long time ago, I think it was about a year ago, he was able to join us before. So you may already know who he is, but I am going to give him a chance to reintroduce himself for maybe our newer listeners who didn't catch his show way back when, so that he has the opportunity to tell you who he is, where he practices, and what kind of law he does. So welcome, Mack, if you would. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, thank you very much, Jackie, and thank you for the invite.
Absolutely.
Thank you for everyone who's listening. So as she mentioned, my name is McKinley Justin. First name is McKinley, last name is Justin. I am a Florida real estate attorney, and I am also a Florida real estate broker. I have two companies. One is Justin Florida Law, which handles all transaction and litigation, whether residential or commercial, in the state of Florida. And the second company is Justin Florida Realty, which handles sales and property management in the state of Florida.
Right.
So I am based out of Tampa Bay, but I do work throughout the entire state of Florida.
Perfect,
if I need to travel, I can travel. If I need to find you, an agent in Miami, I can do that too. I have an agent that's in Miami. I have an agent that's in Jacksonville, and I have two in Orlando.
Awesome.
So we can always kind of like make it work. And if it's real estate, I'm in that sauce. So you just kind of like let me know.
Exactly. He's got you covered. And that's why I figured he's an awesome guest for real estate, because you kind of have your finger on all the things, right? So being a lawyer and a broker, honestly, tell me which one, gets you worked up the most there.
Well, the one that works me up the most would probably be the law firm.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, and part of that law firm is probably the litigation part of it, is doing deposition, mediation. Deposition can last for 8 hours in a day.
Oh my gosh.
I've had mediation like 2 months ago, and it was for 3 days straight for 8 hours.
Right.
So
that's
wears
crazy.
That wears you out. So I could tell you, I have like maybe 3 gray hairs right now. One of them is probably that mediation.
Look, if you're watching, then you should go kind of zoom in. You can see those 3. No, I'm just kidding.
They're like right there, and that was probably mediation or deposition. So I do like the transaction in the law.
Yeah.
Just holding someone's hand, like when they have a real estate contract and they just want to talk about the contract. They want me to review the title commitment, the title search, and all that other stuff. So I love that. But I also, like going to court, and then after court, I just go show a house.
Yeah.
It just makes me feel better.
Yeah. You decompress, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
It's like nice cabinets.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not thinking about,
Don't think
all
about
that
hearing,
deep fraud.
Absolutely, yeah. So before we jump into it, so we've got some great topics and, things that we want to kind of cover for our listeners tonight, but I already told Mac we kind of go with the flow and we'll jump around a little bit. But I want to go back to what I mentioned in the beginning, that I introduced you as the Mustang Lawyer. I heard you drive an electric Mustang. Is that right?
That is correct. Okay, so
tell me about this.
Well, so you heard of the Lincoln Lawyer.
I have, yes.
Okay, so Lincoln Lawyer is one of my favorite shows, and I love that. And
I do too.
When I first got started, I literally worked out of my Mustang. So my Red Roush, I have a 2014 Red Roush.
Okay.
I worked out of my Red Roush. Yeah. So I didn't have an office building. I would meet people at the library, and I would do stuff all over the place. I would do coverage court in Hernando County. I would do Polk County, Sarasota. And then so after a while watching that show, I was like, I'm going to call myself the Mustang Lawyer. I'm technically the Lincoln Lawyer. I just have a Mustang. And then at some point, I just decided to buy an electric car. That was like when the hype was with the electric, buying Teslas and all that other stuff. And everybody's coming out with one Cadillac, Mercedes. And I just like the feeling of getting home, charging my phone, and charging my car.
I love it.
And then in the morning, I just wake up and then just take it and go. So the electric car, I love the electric car because it's more, of my commute. I like to drive a little bit more than the gas guzzler.
Yeah, I would imagine you travel a lot and doing real estate. Yeah.
I travel a lot. The red car, every time I get to a property, let's say I'm doing a property visit or I'm just dropping by, the tenant is already outside waiting for me because they're like, hey, Mac, I heard you. So the electric car is something that's very...
I heard you before I saw you.
Exactly. Yeah. So the electric car is very, quiet, fast as the Red Roush, faster actually, because there's no lag. It's just straight driving and there's nothing you have to worry about. Nice. So I do, prefer my, electric Mach-E than, I prefer the Mustang than the Red Roush. But the Red Roush has been with me since the law school. So I went to law school with it. I graduated, passed the bar. I did coverage court for a whole year in my Mustang.
That's awesome.
And so now I was like, you know what? I'm technically the Lincoln Lawyer, but I just have a Mustang.
Yeah. I think it's fitting. I think it's very fitting. So then when I think of a Mustang, I think of fast, and the red is definitely something that gives me speed. But you tell me, does that mindset carry over into how you approach your deals at all?
Absolutely. So when it comes to like real estate, you got to move fast.
Yeah.
If you don't move fast, then that means that, somebody else is probably going to get that deal. When it comes to buying and selling, if you see a deal that looks really good, you call an attorney and you find out and you review the deal the same day.
Yeah.
If you wait more than 24 hours, it's probably going to be gone. So at the same time, I like the power, the speed of a Mustang. And then I feel like sometimes when I drive to work, I'm already like super motivated.
The commute got you hyped there, man.
Yeah, the commute just got me all ready just for work or just driving. But at the same time, because I drive a lot too, it's nice to drive something you like to drive or something that, catches eyes or make conversation.
Yeah.
So yes, it does carry, from the minute that I leave my car and going to my office, I'm already on speed mode. I'm already in driving mode.
Yeah. Well, look, in Florida, I can think of just so many different ways that real estate law can come up for our listeners, buying, selling, real estate disputes. It's so many things that this can fall into. So listeners, this is a show for you. Like I said, tune in, make sure you share with your family members and friends, some of them that may have real estate questions. They want to know what market are we in, what's going on in Florida right now. This is the show for you. And you heard it from him directly. He's the Mustang Lawyer, and he's got his hand and finger on the pulse, and we know what's going on here. So I'm just going to jump into it. For your Florida listener, how would you describe today's real estate market in one sentence, if you could?
It's a buyer's market.
Okay.
But at the same time, as a seller, you don't let people run over you.
Okay.
Right. So previously, we had this, pandemic, and it was like a seller's market and all that other stuff. But now you're looking at interest rate about 5%. That means 5% if it's 15 years, 6% if it's about 30 years.
Right.
So it's getting a little bit, better for buyers to buy. So at the same time, you can pick and choose what you want.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as a seller, you shouldn't let people just run over you, because you're going to have, as a buyer, you wanted to buy it for the lowest, right? As a seller, you want to sell it for the highest.
Yeah.
So there is that negotiation and that power, but I do have, for buyers, there is a lot of things in the markets right now. So you can kind of like browse around and figure out which work best for you.
Yeah. So obviously there's kind of that mixed information. That's kind of the beauty of the internet, but also the danger in the internet, because there's just a lot of mixed messages out there. They'll say, oh, the prices are going up, prices are going down, the rates are high, inventory's there, it's not there, it's rising. What's really the truth?
So it's always going to be a mix in the real estate market, because remember, we know that real estate is unique.
Yeah.
It's not like going to Walmart and picking up a banana or an apple or something like that, or buying, a car, or even buying, a laptop. Real estate is always going to be unique. It's always going to be mixed. So there's always going to be a mix of prices, a mix of interest rate, because you can go to Wells Fargo and Wells Fargo says, hey, I'm going to give you 6%, but you go to a private lender and says, I'm going to give you 17%.
Yeah.
Or you find somebody who really owned the property but doesn't really want the lump sum right now, but want to do a seller finance, and they said, let's do 3% or 2%. I did like a 2% earlier this year. I was like shocked.
2%?
2%.
Oh my God.
It was more like a family,
That's
I
crazy.
guess,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's always negotiable.
A way to
it's
do it,
always mixed as far as like what's going on. So that's why it's really key to, have a really good real estate agent or a real estate attorney to tell you about this. So tomorrow things might change. But again, contract rights, of course, contract rules everything around us.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you want to make sure everything is in writing, but it's also negotiable. Everything is negotiable in real estate.
That's where you come in.
Like,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't tell anybody just, hey, just take this for 100,000. No, how about you do 90? Or how about you give me some credits? Or how about, you bring something? So it's always negotiable as far as like, when it comes to the real. So it's always going to be a mixed thing.
Yeah.
So there is never going to be like a set thing when it comes to like real estate, forever. It's different lenders, different marketers, different buyers, different sellers. So it's very unique in its way. So it's always going to be mixed. Again, that's why it's key to have a real estate attorney or a really good real estate agent, that's been doing this for a while, that knows what's going on, so they can assist you to these different steps: lender, banker, title company. So, because it doesn't matter if you're buying a house $100,000 or you're buying a house for $1 million. you still have to do these steps, or you have to deal with people like lenders, title company, title search, all of that other stuff. So yes, it's always going to be a mix. So don't listen to the noise that's online, because there's always going to be noise. That's why you hone in and you focus into an agent or a lawyer and says, hey, I need to know about this. And this has to do with my contract, because what happens in your contract may not work on my contract.
Yeah.
So it is mixed, but there is a lot of noise. But hone in on the expert and let them guide you, because I can tell you, I wouldn't know what I know now unless I've been doing this. I've been doing this for 8 years.
Yeah. The gray hairs of that's telling you how long you've been doing it.
Exactly. I wanted to color them, but everybody's like, no, we need to tell people how long you've been doing this. But it's literally, so, I wouldn't know this unless I'm doing it. So I can tell you, I've seen things and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And I have to do my legal research. Even lawyers still do legal research and all that other stuff. So some people might feel like, yes, I can just do it. I've already listened to the, online noise. I've already take out what I need. But again, you don't know what you don't know. Right?
And that can be, the devil's in the details. Sometimes that can make or break your deal. Yeah.
That literally makes to break the deal, especially when it comes to real estate. When you buy real estate, you're not buying, again, a car or a computer. You're buying something for maybe life for some people. So you definitely want to make sure, if you're going to stay with this for 30 years, that, that noise is not what you make your decision on.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to hone in a little bit on our market here in the Tampa Bay area, and where our listeners are likely tuning in from. Specifically, since it seems like we may be in a unique situation in Tampa Bay, having come off of 2 major storms about 2 years ago, and then again, inventory shifting, and, we were really, really hot market. Houses were priced pretty high. Now we're seeing things changing. So what's happening in Tampa Bay specifically?
Well, Tampa Bay, I think one of the biggest projects that I see in Tampa Bay right now is gas work. They're working on a connection for Ybor, Channel Side, and downtown.
Okay.
Kind of like an urban corridor or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's like one of the biggest projects that I see now that's happening, which actually helps with, with the road, with traveling, rush hour, and all that good stuff. We're seeing a lot of homeowners or developers. They're more specific and selective on where they build and what they build. It's not just find a plot of land anymore and then just like put 100 house in there. No, they're being really honed in and specific as to like where they want to build, what they want to do, and all of that good stuff. So you have Water Street, which changed downtown Tampa a little bit. You have the Rome Yard, which is bringing a mix of income for housing. You have the Tampa airport, which is building a new airside D terminal. And of course, you have SITP. Just do it. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Tampa. Of course, I tell people when I drive around in rush hour time, I'm like, oh my God, more people are moving in, more people are moving. But I need them to move in. This is my business.
Look, that's job security.
This is my business. So there's been a lot of
work. But you hate it when you're sitting in the traffic.
I'm sitting in traffic, yeah. When I'm sitting, that's the only time I think about it, actually. Every other time I'm at home, my office, I'm like, yes, people call me, let's move in, let's move out, or whatever. But there's a lot of project when it comes to like, the builders for, home. Riverview is a really nice up and coming right now. So you have the Selman right behind there. So it's like, okay, that's perfect. Of course, Brendan has already been established, but Riverview has nicer, newer home in that little area. And of course, you have Ybor. So as far as the, the real estate market, it's pretty much like, aside, just like the average, U.S. market. Again, we have interest rate of 6%. If you want to do 15 years, you can get 4 or 5, or 5% in an interest rate. So it's really nice. And one of the things that I love about Tampa, and you don't get that from anywhere else, like any other city, because I've lived in Jacksonville, I've lived in Orlando, lived in Miami. Tampa has a bunch of outskirts. A lot of nice little town in the outskirts. So if you don't want to be in the Tampa zip code, if you don't want to be right there, Apollo Beach. So you have you have all of these surrounding areas that gets you more room for your bucks.
Yeah, definitely.
And then also has room for investment. And again, like if you've been to Miami, you know what Miami's like. If you've been to Jacksonville, you know. But Tampa sits in Tampa, and then you have all these outskirts. It's connected, less than an hour away.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about, because I've seen some stuff that seems to be sitting. It's like, the waterfront, the beaches, kind of those areas that flooded tremendously on the coastline. And then you had all these developers that were building in these areas, and now the signs seem to just still be sitting there. It's a little bit kind of off topic, but what do you feel about that market where it's like, okay, you've got these beautiful homes that were flooded and now they had to be remediated, or they haven't been, they need to be elevated. All these different things are going on with those.
So I think after Hilton and Helene, Milton, people thought a lot about where they stayed, like flood wise. Right. So let's say, for example, beautiful house on Bay Shore. It's great. I thought about buying it, but now it's been flooded. And I'm like, when is the next hurricane is going to come? Of course, Tampa sits in a nice little area where we don't have hurricanes that will come like every single year. It sits really nice. However, this is Florida.
Yeah.
This is Florida. You're going to get hurricane. You're going to have to deal with that stuff. So I think what happened after Helene and Milton, a lot of people just start thinking about that. And they're still kind of like somewhat scared. If there's a hurricane sometime this year, they're
more
still
hesitant.
Yes, as opposed to before. It's like, when was the last time before, Helene, you had like a big hurricane or a major hurricane? I have clients who are sitting right now or waiting on insurance checks.
Yeah.
So it might be possible that, some of the houses...
And that was all over a year ago.
Oh, it's over a year ago.
Crazy.
So I have some clients that are like, yeah, I'm just waiting for that to fix it. Or I want to fix it better. And a lot of people in Bayshore too, they want nicer home. They want the home already ready. They're not trying to be, in renovation
Rehab
property
it.
brothers. Yeah. They're not trying to
They don't want to fix her up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's either has to be already, or maybe we'll wait, or we'll find something somewhere else. But the thing is, like, if it's priced right, you can sell anything. Like, I mean, this pen might be worth $2, but if I really want to get rid of it, I could sell it for 30 cents. And some of those houses that are there, some of them has a lot of equity just sitting there. It's just buyers again wants the lowest, seller wants the highest.
Of course.
So they're sitting there, but that doesn't mean the property value is gonna go down. Yeah. So the other thing too is it might be just sitting there, and they might be okay with it being just sitting there for a year and not making any money of it, rent or anything. The market is slowly trying to trickle back up or
kind
whatever.
of correct itself.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
So they'll be okay. And some of these guys, they'll be okay. They're like, yeah, it's fine. We can just let that sit for like a year or so.
Must be nice.
It is nice.
Must be nice to have that outlook. But so for the average person, it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm reading the conversation wrong, but it sounds like this is a good time to buy, or should you be waiting?
So that's a great question. So I don't care if it's 1950, if it's 2000, 2050. It's always a good time to buy.
Says the real estate lawyer.
Of course, right? But here's the why. Here's the why. You got to know your why.
Okay.
You can't just want to buy and don't know why your why is. So there's two reasons why in my real estate or in my experience that I see people buying. One, it's personal, right? You want to be close to work. You want to have, your kids, your kids nearby. You want to have your school nearby. I have a client who bought a property, and she's an hour and a half away from her own business. And I was like, well, no, we need to sell that and get you something closer, 15 minutes.
Sure.
I own my own business. I'm not driving more than 15 miles.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
15 miles is too much.
Yeah.
Like, way too. So
15 miles in rush hour traffic. That's like an
it's
hour
not
and a
happening.
half.
15 minutes. 15 minutes is my max to get to work. So, and then from work to home. So again, why are you buying? You're buying, one, because it's personal. You like the location. You like this. You like that. Even if it's above, we saw that a lot with the pandemic. Even if it's way above, you still want it. The second reason why people buy is for investment. Know your numbers. Right, so you're buying a house and you're like, okay, I like to make $1,500 a month, and you did the math and it's $900. Don't buy it. So it doesn't really matter what year, what day, what's going on. If you really want to buy, again, that's why it's so key to have a real estate attorney or a real estate broker to kind of look at the deals and figure out, why are you buying? And I would never put somebody in a property that they cannot not afford.
Yeah.
As a property manager myself, I know if you don't pay the rent, that's a 3-day notice is coming up.
Yeah.
So for you, I want to make sure I put you somewhere where you're comfortable for at least 10 to 20 years. We can even do maybe 5, and you can refinance, or you can can sell it. So, but if you don't have like a 5 to 10 to 20 year goal, again, don't buy. But it's always a good time to buy. You just got to know your why. Why do you want to buy it? Don't just buy a banana just because you want to. No, you like, I need some potassium. Like,
so are you saying that gone are the days from the pandemic where you could sell a shed on the coast and get $600K?
Yeah, that's like, that's not there
those
anymore.
times are gone.
Yeah, no, they're not there anymore. And it's funny, like, there were so many properties that were sold that are above market, but you said it earlier. The market is trying to readdress itself.
Yeah.
The market is trying to come back, and that's why it's key for buyers now, because you have the power as a buyer.
Yeah.
So houses listed for $200,000. You're like, hey, let's do $190, and then of course the market will readdress itself. But yeah, those days of the shed in Miami, which happened.
Look, that's still going on a little bit.
You get a bed? Oh snap!
Yes.
Like $250.
Yeah. I saw a house once on I think it probably was Realtor.com, and it was like the kitchen was outside. The kitchen wasn't even in the house; it was in the backyard. They wanted like a crazy amount. I'm like, what?
And then that's why, again, real estate is unique. In real estate, it's always negotiable.
Yeah.
If you want an outside kitchen, you can get one.
Look, and there's a way to sell it, right?
Oh my God, there is always. If it's real estate, again, you've heard they're not making anymore, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there are only certain places you can get this. So if you can get that, that's block. I'll get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have reached a good point to take a short commercial break, and then we'll be back talking all things Florida real estate. We're going to get into some buyer mistakes, things to look out for if you're getting ready to buy or sell. So we will take a short commercial break, and we'll be back with attorney Mack Justin with FLA Law live on the radio.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
After a car accident, there are many questions that you need answers to. Who pays for my car repairs? Who pays for the medical bills? What about my lost wages? And more. The personal injury law firm of Pernick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes has been answering these questions for their clients for nearly 70 years. Since 1955, they've been a voice of the injured in the legal system. As one of the longest established law firms in Tampa Bay, Pernick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes is here to answer your questions. Listen to their live call-in radio show on this channel every Tuesday evening from 5 to 6 p.m. or call them at 727-796-8282 or visit them at voiceoftheinjured.com. Offices Clearwater, non-attorney spokesperson.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
And we are back from that commercial break. You have been listening to FLA Law on the radio. Thank you for joining us once again with FLA Law with my special guest, attorney Mack Justin, who is a Florida real estate attorney and broker. We're talking all things Florida real estate right now, and we're about to jump into some more information about buying and selling. So we've discussed the market. Now let's get into it. And we won't waste any time because we want our listeners to have some good information here. What's one of the biggest mistakes you see that first-time home buyers tend to make here in Florida?
I think one of the biggest mistake is not having a proper inspection and not knowing, I guess that's two, right? You like what is, and then not knowing what the cost is after they purchase.
I see what you mean. With
so we're talking about the before
taxes. And,
correct.
Yeah.
So they're for some reason they're not thinking the beyond the purchase.
Okay.
So I do get a lot of call, and one again is like, okay, yeah, maybe I didn't inspect the property correctly, and we will talk about that because I did bring a contract, so I can just read something off of it. But I guess the second biggest would be like, yes, they don't think about the cost of what the insurance, the maintenance, because you're a tenant, you don't have to worry about that stuff. You just pay $15.95 every single month.
It's same.
Yeah. Plumbing goes off. You're like, hey, landlord, fix it.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about insurance, homeowner insurance changing or going up. You don't have to worry about your HOA. So there's a lot of people who have, I guess, buyer's remorse after the fact, or they buy it and then they're like, oh man, I didn't think about all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then again, that's why it's key to have a real estate attorney and or an agent that knows, that tells you, hey, you're gonna buy this. Let's look for the 30 years, because this contract is only good for 40 to 60 days, right?
Yeah.
40 to 60 days, we're done with this contract. We're moving towards your ownership.
Yep. Yeah.
So, one of the things is like, not having the proper inspector and then not knowing what the cost is after the fact.
So tell me then a little bit, let's drill into the inspection part of it. What do you mean by proper? Because I feel like most people, they just rely on whoever their agent says, oh, hire this inspector. They come in, they do their thing, and they give them a report. You know, is there something more they should be doing beyond that?
No, it's just so you can ask your real estate agent for an inspector. You can say, hey, real estate agent, give me an inspector or someone that you trust, or you can just go online and do it.
Yeah.
But I guess what I meant was, after you hire this inspector,
Yes.
did you look at the report?
Yeah. Did you actually act on what was found? I gotcha.
Did you call the inspector? And a lot of people don't do this. Like, even before you call the lawyer or the agent, call the inspector and be like, hey, I want you to explain this to me. Don't be there while he's doing the inspection.
Why is that?
I've had that. I've had like clients or talking to the inspector.
Yeah.
No, you let him do his job.
Okay.
Then you can have some questions.
Okay.
Like, what is the water spot? What is this? He's
like
probably going to
following
miss,
them all
like
around,
following them around the house and stuff like that. He's probably going to miss one or two things.
Because you're talking.
You're
Yeah,
talking.
I
You're talking.
gotcha.
You're there. So no, let him do what he needs to do, and then after that, you call him and says, "I want you to explain. You pay that $400.
Yeah,
I want you to
go through it.
explain
Yeah.
this to me." And then everything in there. So we're going to go back to being a buyer's market.
Yeah.
So the state of Florida used this as is contract. So the state of Florida, the Florida Bar and the Florida Realtors have a contract. They have a committee that comes together once a year, and then they basically revise this contract that almost everybody in the entire state use.
Gotcha.
There is a sentence in there. It says paragraph 12, which is like the inspection. And if buyer determines in buyer's sole discretion that the property is not acceptable to buyer may terminate the contract. That is the most powerful clause here.
Really?
Being that,
I always thought it was a little harder to get out of that thing.
residential,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool for the buyers. Commercial, yes, you may have some, and if you don't have this contract too, yes.
Yeah.
But if you use this contract in buyer's sole discretion,
Wow.
I don't have to tell you the reason for backing out. I can just walk
Really?
into the house and I said, hey, you know what? This doesn't look like the white that I like. This is off-white. I don't even know what off-white is. I'm just saying because somebody mentioned it to me.
Mother of pearl,
I
yeah.
was like, so
Eggshell.
you don't have
Yeah.
to tell them. You can just say, you know what? But of course, there's a deadline on here. You
Of
have
course,
to
yeah.
within 7 days, just say, hey, I don't want the property anymore. I don't. But that goes back to, you spoke to your inspector. You have a 7-day inspection. You need to hire your inspector day 1. By day 5, you need to have that report back. Don't wait till day 7
Yeah.
by day 5, you talking to your inspector. You're like, hey, what is there that I need to worry about for the next 30 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to worry about certain things like, roof or whatever for 5-10 years. That's fine. But you got to put that in the back of your head that you
Exactly.
may have to. So buyers have a superpower in residential buying, not commercial, residential. They have a superpower in the contract to just back out for any reason whatsoever if it's in there within 30 days, and then they can just send a release and cancellation and get their deposit back.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things people kind of tend to overlook, but it is. I don't think there's a clause in this, any other clause in here that I feel like it's more powerful.
That's extremely important, yeah.
Because you can cancel the contract and get your money back.
Yeah, because I think that was always a fear, I think, of people thinking, oh, gosh, I won't get my earnest money back because, I backed out of the deal. But that sounds pretty clear, yeah.
And I'm telling you, buyer's sole discretion, not sellers, not the agent. No, it's and it's subjective. It's not objective.
You
So-
just went in and didn't have good vibes.
Exactly. You're like, I don't like this anymore.
The vibe was off. Yeah.
That's it.
Interesting. Okay. So then obviously that's big. You follow up on the inspection, understand the inspection report, actually speak to the inspector. And then what about repairs? Like, should you be negotiating things as far as
100%,
like, or
yeah,
credit, stuff
100%.
like that?
So if I list a house, if I'm buying a house for 200,000 and I find like a major plumbing issue, or if I find like a roof, I'm deducting that. It's either one or two things that can happen. It's either you sell that for me for 175 because I got to get a new roof later on,
Of course.
or you fix the roof,
Yeah,
or you fix it before I buy it.
makes perfect sense.
So, or we can do a little credit. You can
Yeah.
give me a credit. We can still buy it for 200,000, but you give me like a credit, like a $10,000 to $15,000 credit. So yeah, it's always negotiable.
There's
as
always
a
ways
buyer.
to do it,
There's
yeah.
always ways. So yeah, there's like 3 different ways that I do it on a normal basis. So there's ways to do it, but yes, 100%. Don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, it's already a no, right?
Yeah.
But if you ask, it's like a maybe.
Yeah. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
That's right.
So then what are some of the things, I don't know if this falls into what you talked about people not fully understanding the cost or like the monthly that they're going to be paying. What about at closing? What do you think shocks people the most when they get to the closing?
Cash to close.
The money they
Like
have
the
to
money
bring.
they have to put
Yeah.
down to the lender. So, and it's really tricky sometimes too, because there's no set math in like when you talk to the lender before you put a contract in. When you talk to the lender's telling you, okay, based on your credit, based on everything that I see here and now, you're going to need to give me $10,000.
Right.
But we have 40 to 60 days of contract times that, title search, that might come up, that might come up. They find out you have a credit card, with $17,000 on it, and they want you to wipe it off before you purchase it. That's going to be part of your cash to close.
I gotcha.
So there are things that comes up, and then they're like, okay, yeah, everything is great. But like 3 days before closing,
Right
they
before,
get they get a settlement statement, and they're like, 40,000.
Yeah.
I thought you said I had to bring 5,000, and
Yeah.
especially if you're FHA, you're thinking about 3.5% versus like conventional 20%, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So cash to close is like one of the biggest thing that I see. Like at closing, you're like, I didn't know about this, because everything else should have already been taken care of.
Sure.
Inspection,
Yeah.
Walkthrough,
Appraisals, all that,
everything should
yeah.
have been taken. Yeah, exactly. Appraisal. But when it comes to the cash to close, you may not get that to like maybe 3-4 days before you actually. So you got to make
Yeah.
sure you're following up with your lender. That's the key point here.
Stay on
on
top of that,
top
yeah.
of the lender, just like you would with the inspection report. Stay on top of the lender. You could call that guy every single day. He's making a nice low, money on this. So
Make 'em earn
work.
their fee.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
stay
I
on top
gotcha.
of the lender. It could be daily or weekly, and saying, hey, I just want to make sure I don't go too far off this $10,000
Yeah,
mark.
where am I? Yeah.
Yes.
What is it looking like? So that's a good point. Then, do you have any horror stories where you get to like 3 days before your closing, and they've gotten their loan estimate, and it's like their cash to close is way higher than they thought? Does the deal fall apart? What do you do?
Yeah, no. So sometimes it falls apart. Sometimes it falls apart if you don't have the cash.
If you
right?
don't have the funds.
So I'm asking for an extra $5,000, and you don't have the extra $5,000. It's a dead deal. It's a dead deal. So now you get to, as far as the horror stories, I'd have to kill you because I got some privilege, but they're out there, because like what happened is you cannot pay for the closing. It becomes an issue. You have to like cancel the contract. Then you got an issue with the seller, because the seller's like, well, you're in breach because you were qualified, but you didn't close. So the seller's calling me and saying, hey, what do I do with this? Can I force him to buy the house? And I'm like, no, you can't force him, because he
He's got
can't
buyer
really.
financing
Exactly.
issues.
So
I
he can't
mean,
even buy.
they don't have the
So
money.
now we talk about with the seller, do we keep the deposit? Because they couldn't close. And if we can find out maybe it wasn't the buyer's fault, they weren't negligent, it was most likely the lender, then
Okay.
maybe we can work something out with the seller and split the escrow, or maybe the buyer can get the entire escrow back.
Yeah.
But that's why it's key to stay on top of the lender, because if you're not on top of the lender, at closing, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, I didn't notice. And the lender's like, you never called me. You never reach out to me.
Yeah.
So it's your fault.
This information would have been known to
Yes.
you. Yeah.
And then you would have canceled the contract like back in 20 days, like earlier. So it's staying on top with the lender. And again,
Yeah.
we're not buying a pen. So
This is big.
this
Yeah.
is big. This
Yeah.
is a 30-year commitment.
So let's flip it then, because we've spent a lot of time talking about buyers, because we're, buyers are having a good day right now as far as the market. But what about sellers? What mistakes have you seen that sellers actually make?
Sellers, some sellers First of all, it's too high. Okay, that's
They've
number
got it
one.
overpriced, yeah.
Because it's like, again, sellers, they want that top dollar.
We all do.
But
yeah.
the top dollar doesn't exist because I still have to do appraisal, there's negotiation, there's, other stuff going on.
Yeah. Unless you want your house to sit.
Correct, exactly. One of the second thing that I see is in the seller disclosure form.
Okay.
So there is a form as a seller. You're selling a property. Your real estate agent says, hey, you know what? I want you to fill this out for me.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any plumbing issue? Is there any AC issue? So there's 3 boxes. If you're looking at the seller disclosure form, there's 3 boxes to your right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no, I don't know. If you don't know, do not say no.
Yeah.
You're making an affirmative statement.
I gotcha. Mm-hmm.
I see sellers, they don't live at the property. They're possibly renting the property to someone, and sometimes even tenants don't report bad issues with the property. So as far as you know, when you're filling this out, it's not as far as I know, no.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, I don't know.
I don't know, right.
So I've seen seller fill this out and then say yes or no, and then we get to a Johnson v. Davis issue where
pulling out the case law.
we get to an issue where you fail to disclose or you misrepresent the facts.
Ooh. So what is the penalty, I guess, for something like that?
Oh,
when you run into an issue where they fail to disclose.
So let's run through a scenario. Let's say I have to replace the electrical. It's going to cost me $15,000.
Sure.
You can't undo the contract, and most court will not undo the contract. So what you go after for that failure to disclose, if you knew, is the $15,000 plus your cost.
I got you.
So you're just going after your damages.
Yeah.
So whatever you were out of pocket, if you have to hire somebody to replace the
I
roof
see.
or whatever,
see.
you're just going off for that part, and of course maybe some fees and damages or whatnot.
Yeah. So I saw something come out recently too about as a result of Helene and Milton, a lot of flood damage and things that had happened. And it may have been Pinellas or St. Pete specific, I don't know, but basically it just made it very clear that the sellers had to disclose the flood damage.
100%.
And to me that seemed like a no-brainer. But so when we're talking about leaks, roof issues, mold, storm damage, they have to.
Yes, if they
or
know,
just say, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. If you know about it, you must. Johnson v. Davis is going to hold you liable for that. Okay, you must, say it is. But if you don't know, then you don't know. I've had people who live out of state, but their property's in St. Pete.
Yeah.
But they don't know if it. But you just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Don't
say
then you're in compliance.
Exactly. Exactly. Just don't say no. I'm going to find out later because I'm going to go out there and find a neighbor that knows something about somebody in that neighborhood, and that's going to be my witness.
Yeah. So do you handle claims like that? Let's say they bought their property, they've closed, they get into the property and find out there's a major electrical issue or there's a major mold issue.
Ooh, that's
and now
great
they're
follow-up.
out tons of money, and now they need to sue.
Yeah, that's a great follow-up because that goes back to the inspection. Because
Yeah.
the first thing that I'll tell you,
What will
Jackie,
you say?
I want your inspection report. That's the
Gotcha.
first thing that I'll do. You come to me and say, hey, I bought this property. There's so many things that are wrong with it, this and that. The first thing that I'll ask you is, Jackie, let me see your inspection report before I send out a letter. Because in that inspection report, 1 out of 3 times, it's listed in there. I don't know
What
the
we
math.
say, the devil's in the details.
Like 1 out of 3 times, it's mentioned or somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So I take the inspection first. Once I decide it's not an inspection report, then I figure out if there's any. Then the second thing would be the seller disclosure form.
Yeah.
Did the seller misrepresent that fact? Did they know about it? Then from those 2 documents, then I can probably send a letter out and says, hey, my client purchased this property. You should have disclosed this. You didn't disclose it. Now they're out $60,000 and we need to be compensated.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the way it would be going.
Yeah.
So then if you're representing the seller, just painting over the mold, that's not a legal strategy, right?
Oh my God, jeez. So
Painting
it's
over the
funny,
water lines or the flood lines.
So a red flag would be to go to a single family house, and it's not a newer home, it's not a newer build, and you don't see new walls, but you smell fresh paint.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh, what's going on here? So
Red flag.
that's a red flag. So but again, you can't misrepresent the facts. You can't hide the fact.
Right.
If you know it, just know. But it's so easy to say, this is as is.
Yes.
That's what I love about the contract too. It's like you can
That
sell it
Florida
as
form,
is.
yeah.
Exactly. You can say, hey, this is your problem. You take care of it. If you don't want to take care of it, that's fine. I can find somebody else and I could adjust the price and, make it work. But yes, no, hiding things or misleading things, it's just that's the easiest way. You can get a demand letter from me.
Yep. You'll find yourself on the wrong side of attorney Mack Justin, right? So let's jump into, in the last few minutes of the show, landlord-tenant issues, because I know that a lot of our listeners are probably dealing with these or have dealt with them in the past and didn't know what to do, and now they have someone that can really talk about this. So for renting in Florida right now, let's talk about renters and landlords. What are some of the most common disputes that you see, whether it's just the average landlord-tenant dispute or even just new things that are popping up in the Florida market?
Ooh, I got one for you.
Yeah.
So I do represent both landlord and tenant,
Okay.
as long as there's not a conflict.
Sure.
If you're a landlord and you would like to get your tenant back on track, you would like to get your rent, or you would like a 7-day notice of non-compliance and all that stuff, I could do that. At the same time, I do have a heart for tenants because I am a tenant myself too, and I know tenants out there, they don't have a lot of money, so they are paying $800. They can't afford to hire an attorney $350 an hour.
Sure.
So one of the things that I see with landlord a lot is basically not making repairs on a timely manner, and then not communicating to those two things. So you can say you're going to make the repair, but communicate that with the tenant.
Sure.
Work with the tenant on that, as far as like maybe just abate the rent or credits and stuff like that. It's communication with the landlord is really big, because like I have so many landlords that I said, hey, where is this? And I'm like, how did you tell them this? Oh, I call them on the phone, or I basically send them a text message. No, landlord, this is a business. Treat it like a business. Okay.
Yeah.
Document everything. Put everything in writing. Do your 3-day notice. You can't do change the lock, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's illegal here. So if you document everything and you put everything on in a piece of paper, my job is going to be so much easier.
Makes sense.
For a tenant will have a repair issue.
Yeah.
And the landlord is not repairing, and the landlord is not communicating. Tenant just decide to just withhold the rent.
Yeah.
That's a big no-no.
Yeah.
Your first step is to send what's called a 7-day notice to cure. You can find it online.
Okay.
It's a 7-day notice to cure. You say, hey, landlord, here is the problem that I'm having with this property. You
Sure.
have about 7 days or a reasonable time.
Right.
Because if we think about, mold remediation, that could take like, 20 days or
Sure.
again, but that's part of that communication with the landlord to say, hey, this is going to take some time. This is what needs to happen.
Letting them know, right.
them know. So when tenant just withhold the rent without putting a formal 7-day notice, they get into trouble. Because the landlord is going to put a 3-day notice, then the landlord is going to evicted. And then when you insert the complaint, you can't just tell the judge, oh, I didn't pay the rent because of this, and that.
Yeah.
There's 2 things you have to do as a tenant when you get sued.
So that's not a defense.
That's not a defense at
Okay.
all. There's 2 things you have to do when you get sued for eviction. One is insert the complaint and say, hey, judge, this is why I didn't pay. And a nice 7-day notice to cure as Exhibit A is beautiful.
Okay.
The second thing you have to do is to put the money in the court registry. If they're asking for,
So you can't go spend it on a cruise.
nah. Oh, how?
Gotcha. Good to know.
No, you gotta. If you
do
need
that.
to open up a separate bank account or something like that, still put the rent
Put it aside.
aside, because like the second thing that's going to happen is the court is going to ask you to put money in the court registry, and if you do not put anything in the court registry, it's an automatic default. Default means you don't even have a chance.
As if you didn't even answer.
You didn't even
Yeah.
answer, exactly. You might as well not answer, actually. Well, and I say that because I tell some clients, answering is better not answering at all. But when it comes to like the eviction, it's very clear. It's a 3-day notice, and it's black letter law. The judges have no discretion whatsoever to maneuver or do anything on that sort. So it's when it comes to the tenant, I think the biggest issue is not sending in a formal notice.
Gotcha.
Certified to the landlord that says, hey, go ahead and you need to do this, and they can just sit on it. And then now they don't pay rent, then they have a perfect excuse. They have the money in the court registry, so whenever the landlord sue, and the landlord does not automatically get that money that they put in the court registry, because we can argue motion to determine rent. We can say, hey, I've lived in a 2-2 and it felt like a 1-1 because 1 bedroom. I'm not paying you for a 2-2. So we can always go back and say, hey, let's do a motion to determine rent and find out how much the landlord is entitled to versus how much the tenants get back.
I see. Makes very, very, very good sense. So then my question becomes, when it comes to a repair issue like that, where, like you said, they can just find it online and say, here's my 7-day notice to cure, but are there certain categories of repairs that we're looking at, or can it be anything that the
No,
tenant,
it could
I don't
be
like
anything.
the microwave broke.
Well, okay. That's a great question. I like that. So there are some things they're on your lease listed as courtesy items. So the microwave is probably a courtesy item.
Gotcha.
The washer and dryer is probably a courtesy item.
Okay.
So there are certain things that you can't just, but big ticket item, AC, plumbing, you know, all that stuff. But also if your lease says, hey, I am renting this property and the reason I'm renting it is for the microwave, then yes, you can probably,
that was essential part of the lease.
Exactly.
I got you. Because I remember way back when, and I don't know where I heard this. Maybe it was in school at some point, but I heard about this phrase about uninhabitability. Like, okay, if the property becomes uninhabitable, okay, now you don't have to pay your rent or something like that. Is that true?
Still the
or is
same
that
thing
not?
with the 7-day notice.
Gotcha.
Still the
Okay.
very same thing with the 7 notice. You cannot live there. There's a reason why you can't live there. Hey, landlord, give me a property that I can live in, or we're going to terminate the lease.
Yeah.
So you have those two choices. You have the right to terminate the lease if you want to,
Yeah.
or you can say, hey, landlord, I need you to put me somewhere else. If they have that option, like for example, instead of apartment complex, they have another unit they can put you in.
Right,
there.
right,
But if you're a
right.
single guy and the property is completely destroyed, you don't have somewhere else to put them. So the trick is, okay, so now you're going to have to give them maybe keys for cash to move out.
I see.
Or just terminate the lease. Everybody goes their separate ways.
They're separate ways. No harm, no foul.
No harm, no
Yeah.
foul. But it's always good to put that in the writing and in everything. So
Yeah, because I wondered how that played out, because I know you're probably familiar with, there were total apartment complexes during the storm that were completely flooded out, at least the first floor units, where people, were up to their chests in water. They can't live there. And it's like, what do you do at that point?
So yeah, at that point, it's a negotiation of a mutual release of the lease. And then again, if I can put you somewhere, then I'll try to put you somewhere. But if I can't, then yeah, we gotta cancel the lease, and everybody goes their separate way. It depends on, do I give you $50 or do I give you your security deposit back without no issue at all, and so forth.
Man, good point. It's about the security deposit. So, in what circumstances are landlords entitled to actually keep that?
So you move out. When you move out, the landlord has about 30 days or so to basically put a claim on the security deposit. So if when you moved in, you had a door in the third bedroom, and then you moved out, there's no door in there, then I'm gonna put a claim on the security deposit that says, hey, I need
What happened to the door?
Yeah, I need a new door. And then so within 30 days, they have to send you an itemized. So this is another thing that landlord or bad about is itemizing everything. You can't just send an email that says, hey, you know what, I'm taking $1,100.
Yeah.
No. Door, this is how much the door costs. Nail, this is how much the nail costs. Because if I have to go to court, the judge is going to be really nitpicky on everything. And then they're also going to ask, is it reasonable for that price? Is that door worth $15,000? What is it, gold? Is it like platinum? So it has to be also reasonable.
The ancient temple of Greece. Yeah.
You never know. So yeah, it has to be somewhat reasonable too when it comes to the pricing
Makes sense,
or what you're putting that claim on the security deposit.
justifiable,
And if you don't do that within 30 days, you forfeit the entire deposit. That does not mean you can't go after the tenant for the damage later on in a small claim. You just can't keep that deposit.
I gotcha. Makes perfect sense. Mack, it's been a great show with the Mustang Lawyer. Oh, thank you so much for joining us. I told you this would go by quickly, but I want to reserve a minute just for you to give our audience your contact information, how they can find you on the internet, however that might be. Just let us know how to reach you.
Well, the very first way you can reach me on any social media platform is going to and put hashtag the Mustang Lawyer.
That's how they find you.
If you're on Facebook, you're on TikTok, wherever you at, just put hashtag the Mustang Lawyer, and some of my content will probably show up.
Nice.
But if you still can't find me, you can go ahead to my website, Justin Photo Law or Justin Photo Realty. We are on Google. My phone number is 833-535-2529.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been a great show. We're talking all things Florida real estate. So I hope you learned something tonight. If you have real estate questions, now you know who you can call. This has been FLA Law live on the radio, folks. We will see you next Tuesday at 5 with more of your live legal talk show. You have a great night, and we'll see you next week.